Welcome to Homebrew by J.W. Martin Real Estate, where we uncover the true stories of what's brewing in South Carolina's local business scene. I'm Joey Martin, and each week we sit down with the ones who are pushing through the grind. Business owners, creators, and community leaders who have fought through the tough times and come out stronger. No fluff, just real stories, smart insights, and a whole lot of lessons learned the hard way. Let's dive in. Welcome to Homebrew, where we learn the stories behind our striving local businesses. We'll learn the good, the bad, and the ugly of entrepreneurship and business. I'm Joey Martin, and I'm honored to welcome today's guest to Homebrew, a very close personal friend of mine, Richard Yeargin III. Richard's a man of faith, a father, a husband, a former player at Clemson University with 2 championship rings on his hand. He played also at Boston College, a Brian Piccolo Award recipient, a professor at Clemson University, a motivational speaker, an author, and most recently, he has accepted the position of Director of Former Player Relations at Clemson University. So to say this man stays on to go is an understatement. Richard, I am honored to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Joey, I don't know how I'm going to come behind all of that, but thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to be half the man that you are one day when I grow up.
Oh, goodness, man. I really appreciate that compliment. Thank you so much. So, Richard, you've got so much great stuff going on in your world, but that hasn't always been the case. Your story is so powerful and impactful and truly one of overcoming adversity. Let's go back in time, if you will, to the beginning, before all these blessings had been bestowed upon you. What was life like for Richard in the early years?
Yeah, man, the formative years of a young Richard was rambunctious, was willing to take risks, but also understood that God had his hand on my life. When you think about the words that I just used to describe myself, I was living a double life, right? I couldn't really make a decision on what was good versus what was bad, being in the situation that I was brought up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. On the other side of the tracks, there was one life. And then once I crossed over and was able to go to the other side and experience the better things in life, as far as education had to offer and athletics, I started to see, there's no difference in versus wrong in certain people's eyes. Depends on the way you look at it. And so I would say I spent a lot of my younger life battling with who I was and trying to figure out who I would become. And football was my tool to help me get through in life and overcome specific obstacles that, for example, when you grow up in an area surrounded by drugs, you grow up surrounded by crime, murder, all those things that are going on in your ecosystem, statistically speaking, how do you make it out? And
Right.
the way in which you make it is you got to have some form of a gift, some form of a talent or a hustle that's going to put you in position to get out of that situation. And so for me, looking back on those younger years, I was always trying to figure out which route I'm going to take, how I'm going to get out of here. And you just trying anything that worked until you hit the right slot with the right coin. And
Right.
so when I put the coin in the machine to say, you know what? Like, I want to be a beast in football. Like, everything that my father poured into me, everything that my mother's poured into me over the years, everything that my brothers poured into me over the years, I need to make a decision. And so when I was young, I had to make that clear decision on, I want to be great. Like, no matter what I do, character, all those things, I want to be great because there's so many people that have poured into me, that have developed me to be the man that I am today, but it didn't start today. It started years and years ago, as you mentioned. So that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's fast forward to the years playing at Clemson University, and you're playing alongside, that was a championship football team, and you're there on the championship football team. And then you had this tragic accident that happened. Tell the listeners a little bit about kind of the backstory there.
Yes, sir. June 3rd, 2017, I broke my neck in a severe car wreck. 2,000 pounds, which is an entire ton, came crashing down on my neck 6 months after we had just won the national championship here at Clemson University. So imagine that timeline. Just won a national championship. Fast forward 6 months later, you break your neck. And now what you were anticipating to be your breakthrough year or your breakout opportunity is no longer, and it's eliminated as far as football is concerned. And so as I sat in the hospital, again, contemplating, how did I get here? I was just driving on a rainy day in Greenville, South Carolina, and then I have a hydroplane incident take place. And so now
Mm.
I'm here in the hospital. The doctor's telling me most people in your situation are usually left dead or they're paralyzed for the rest of their life. And fortunately
Wow.
for you, you're neither. And so you should be thankful there, but it'll be a while before you can consider playing football again and pursuing that greatness and that passion and that thing, again, that tool that I was going to utilize to help stimulate and stabilize my life. And so, in my eyes, that was a very tough moment where adversity introduces a man to himself. And so,
Sure.
for myself, I look in the mirror and say, who was I going to become? Who was I currently in that moment? And who I was in that moment versus who I wanted to become were two different people. And so I had to really make a decision to make sure that from that day moving forward, that my actions would align with my words, because that was going to be the only thing that was going to put me back on a linear path towards greatness.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, what a tough thing to have happen. On top of the world, playing the sport that you love, the doing what you have a real true passion for, and then it just gets all taken away from you by no fault of your own. You're just driving along in hydroplane, and your life completely changes. You can no longer play the sport that you love. And man, that had to be so difficult to experience. And when Richard and I originally met, was at the restaurant I used to own, and at Red Minnow Dinner Club, and he was there with some other coaches, and we got to talking about some cigars and things like that. And I was like, "Who's this young guy with all this cigar knowledge?" And we just really struck kind of a friendship from there, and it's grown to be more like a brother like relationship. We're on the phone with one another a few times a week. And man, you're an inspiration in my life, and I want you to know that. So really appreciate that. After this injury, and and then you get the news, and I can remember when you got the news that you were going to be able to play again. You got cleared
Mhm.
to play again. What an emotional roller coaster that had to be, and I could see in you it was an emotional roller coaster. How difficult was it? Because I recall you asking me even, "What do you think? Should I do this? Should I play again?" And man, that's a tough. I didn't know what to tell you. I didn't know what advice to give you on that one. Had to be an emotional roller coaster. How difficult was it to make the decision to play again?
It's funny you asked that question. It's like riding a bike, right? Like, you don't make a decision not to ride a bike as a kid. When you see a bike for the first time, the first thing you want to do is go ride it, but you don't have the skill set to ride yet on your own. So you need training wheels. And so for me, when I saw the opportunity to play again, I was like, oh, it's like riding a bike. Like, I could do that, right? Like, I have the skill set to do, but what it changed was my mechanics. And so what I was concerned with, this, I can't undo this, right? This is surgery that, when you think about it, this changed the course of my life, right? Like, they went in through my neck, did the whole thing, opened me up to fuse two levels of my neck. So you got to think
Mm.
about the level of pressure and the level of discomfort that I had been in for so long. And to challenge that theory and put myself back in a live car accident again and again and again, day after day, crazy. But it's that whole mindset of, if I don't do this, I'll regret it later. But if I'm
Sure.
disciplined now and I say to myself, you know what? It's like riding a bike. I just got to get back on it and find my groove. I just got to do it, right? I can get to my destination, right? So it's, for me, my destination was not external anymore. It was an internal motivator and an internal drive that got me up. And it was like second nature. I didn't even think about it. But
Right.
as I was going through the process, I'm like, man, riding this bike is a little different. I've outgrown certain parts of this bike, but my body is different. So I got to be mindful not to go too fast. I got to keep it at the right pace while I'm. And so it was a journey that I was on, if that makes sense. And so I saw myself every day just trying to get a little bit further on that journey, get a little bit better. And it made it easy for me to make that decision, because I was like, okay, I see a forward path and how this can blaze a trail for me in life.
Yeah, most definitely. I know that had to be a very difficult decision to make. And you were on that championship football team, and I can remember you on the sidelines with that huge neck brace on, and watching the games. And I mean, that you were there when you were at Clemson. I think literally all your teammates that were on that defensive line wound up being drafted to the NFL,
Yeah.
and you missed the opportunity. How did you dig yourself out of the depression that comes along with that after the injury and the recovery?
It's hard to be everyone's Jonathan when they're being David, right? So if you go back into the Bible and you read, when you really study, when one man has received the call and you're supporting him in that call now, and like you said, it feels like you were missed, but you weren't missed because you're right there catching like everything that's going on is just not happening for you in real time. So it's one of those things where again you are really frustrated. And so I remember vividly where I was when I watched the draft that night. I was in South Florida at the time, and I saw all my guys get drafted, all my boys get drafted. And that was the night I made a decision, man. I was frustrated. And I said, you know what? Instead of me being frustrated at the fact that I can't do certain things anymore, like I wasn't in a position to pursue the NFL and stuff like that. How can I create my own NFL? That's when the idea sparked. And so
Okay.
my NFL was making the decision to turn off anything that was negative and just be positive. And when I tell you, for that entire month, that's when the news came. Is when I made that decision internally not to look at or worry about what everybody else had going on externally. That's when the opportunity to play came back to me. And so I was
Right.
like, wow. So by making that decision consciously that night, not to go overboard and be upset about someone else's success, brought it back to me to be able to figure out what my NFL was going to look like. And that was just getting another opportunity. And I didn't know it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, when you went back to play again, you went back to play at Boston College, and man, what an impact you had there. You wind up with the Brian Piccolo Award. Say a little bit of something about that and the impact that, Boston College and receiving that award, the Brian Piccolo Award.
I'm gonna tell you like this. I didn't realize the depths of it until I went back and rewatched the movie Brian's Song and realized that he was actually from Fort Lauderdale and went to my crosstown rival high school, and just understanding like the whole narrative behind not just him and Gail Sayers, but his journey in general. I started to really think about it, and I was like, in terms of alignment, I've never done anything for fame or notoriety or to be put on a pedestal, but it was really cool, man. I'll be honest with you. Throughout that whole experience, traveling the country, talking on shows like Jim Rome, ESPN, all those things were great externally,
Yeah.
but internally, what was even better was it was almost like read a lot of David Goggins jargon and
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
and like I
Oh,
was
yeah.
going crazy for myself, bro, just to push through the internal method, right? Because again, my body was saying, man, you're crazy. Like my body was literally breaking down in the whole process of me fighting it back, right? Come. And so there were points and times where I didn't have it in me.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I gotta finish. I gotta redefine my journey. I gotta redefine my story. I gotta rewrite the ending the way that God intended. I can't let his name go down. Like I just kept fighting every day, not with anybody else, but with myself. And so I realized that was Brian's story, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
really everybody else that he was fighting with for his own success. He was defining his own success internally by how he led, how he showed up, and the value that he was adding when other people didn't maybe see it all the time. It added up eventually. And I just, man, I was honored to receive that honor in honor of his legacy and what he's left behind. And my time at Boston College was well spent because I feel as though I exemplified everything that the reward stands for. My interactions with my teammates and my interactions with my coaches they were first class interactions because I knew it was a business trip. I knew what time it was, and I just understood how to navigate and work systems as it relates to coming in and being humble, just being willing to serve. At the end of the day, like I said, I wasn't trying to come in and be the 5-star Richard Yeargin off the field and all these things and national. I just wanted to come in, serve, and have an opportunity to play, and it led to greater opportunities outside of football, and I was thankful for it.
Right. Man, that's when I say you got a powerful and impactful story, you really do. And so after football, you've made the decision to utilize your story and the story that has such an impact in order to benefit others through telling your story and motivational speaking, and not only helping adults and professionals with your story, but also you started working with the youth quite a bit as well and making quite an impact there. Tell the listeners a little bit about what you're doing in that field.
Absolutely. My heart, I have a ministry heart, but obviously I have a for-profit mind. um,
Right.
and with my idea in consulting and education, utilizing my doctorate and my educational experiences that I've had over the years, I thought it would be very impactful for me to young people. Typically from ages 13 to 19, the data is showing that statistically speaking, our young people are declining due to low reading levels and proficiency and understanding. My thoughts were to develop something that was practical and useful in terms of leadership and career development and readiness for youth that would be comprehensive for them through the curriculum that I developed. And over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, starting with my nonprofit foundation mindset in the beginning, was to bridge the gap, the technology gap that existed within certain communities that were plagued during COVID. And so then that transitioned into Empowered Teens in 2023, which showed up here in South Carolina. And it blew up from Anderson all the way throughout the upstate and the entire state. And so I'm just thankful for the journey, for those that I was able to serve from a ministry standpoint, but also from a marketplace standpoint in consulting and speaking and impacting young people's lives with the curriculum and with the programming that stem from my book. It's been a fantastic journey, and I'm still on it and still trying to climb.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been fortunate enough to see you speak with some of the young folks that you've had an impact on. And I tell you what, man, you don't take it easy on them. You definitely don't. And you ain't playing around in there. So it was really wonderful to see you in there making such an impact on them. And they got out of line. Richard tightened them up real quick. That was pretty cool to watch. It really was. So when was it that you really realized that you had a higher calling than football? You were meant to impact people's lives with your story.
It's funny you asked that question. It was about a month after I had broken my neck in a severe car wreck. I remember it clear as day, pretty vivid. I was still on bed rest. I wasn't able to do a whole lot. But what I could do was I could get up, walk around, and I could talk to people, right? And just be there and be around the wall. And so I remember us going on a trip. And when I say us, at the time with Clemson Football, we travel up every year in the summertime to do a camp with Alabama in a rural area in North Carolina to impact student athletes that were up and coming and wanting to develop their character as well as their skill sets. So
Right.
it was a building camp as well as a football camp for them to be seen. And so essentially there was a opportunity for me to speak. Like I said, fresh off the accident, had just broken my neck. And I'm standing there, I'm giving my testimony. And afterwards, a couple of young men approached me about getting saved. And I was like, I didn't save myself. I was just giving my testimony,
Right.
and I'm a living, walking, breathing testimony. And
Absolutely.
I realized, like, in the process of saving yourself, God calls you to save other people. And even
Wow.
when you think you're down and when you don't think you're useful, you're still useful. Even when I'm faithless, he's faithful. Even when I'm a filthy rag, he treats me like I'm a diamond. And I'm thankful that God revealed that to me, even in my lowest time, that I could still be used.
Yeah, man, that's really wonderful. And just to go out there and share your story and have others come up, and you realize right then, man, I got a story that impacts other people. Man, that's really fantastic. So you got so much going on with the new position as the director of foreign player relations. You're a professor. You're still doing motivational speaking. You're an author,
Mhm.
and you still have a family at home. So, do you believe that work-life balance is possible? And how do you juggle so much and still maintain a healthy relationship at home?
Good, better, best. I never rest. It's actually funny you asked that. My wife asked me, "So you were up till 4 in the morning last night doing exactly what?" I was like, "I wasn't working. I was writing." And writing to me isn't working, right? Like I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone. Good, better, best. I never rest. I got to pay these bills, right? I've got to make sure that she's able to take care of our children effectively and efficiently. And so, by any means necessary, when my family goes to sleep, I'm like, I'm going to work. And so, when they're up, I can enjoy time with them and I could figure out life from there. That's how I operate. Now, most people may think that's crazy, but that's how I've been operating for the last 5 years of my life as I've developed into a father, into a husband, into a young professional transitioning out of football. Man, it's been a grind, right? It doesn't stop. You got to blend the two together and figure
Yeah,
out at what point am I burning the midnight oil and it's not worth it. But if it's worth it and you love what you do, is when I'm done having fun with it, be done with it, right?
right.
I don't want to mess with it anymore. And so it's fun to me. And so I
Yeah.
just do what I do.
I can relate to that on so many levels. When I first started my real estate company, I would be up till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning just designing the logo and website and all this stuff myself. Which just that it doesn't feel like work. It's just fire and passion. And then you look at the clock and it's almost daylight.
Right.
But
Right.
it doesn't feel like work. And I shared with my team the other day. I think it's possible. You hear work life balance thrown around so much these days. I think it's possible to succeed in more than one arena of life. You can succeed in business and you can succeed within your family as well. It doesn't have to. You don't have to choose one or the other. And it sounds to me like you've figured out a way during that quiet time. That solitude is like for me. That's when I make the best decisions, and I'm so much more productive when I have that solitude. So I can certainly relate to that.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Man, I think the biggest thing is, are you competing with yesterday's version of yourself or today? I'm
yeah,
always competing. Man, I got to get better today. I can't worry about yesterday. Yesterday and today
absolutely,
run together for me most of the time, so I don't even know which day it is.
absolutely, absolutely. So after all that you've been through, how do you define the word success?
Man, that's a loaded question, but I would say this: it starts with discipline, right? And then plus dedication, minus distractions, brings you some form of success. And so, what does that mean? It's not what do I want to be when I grow up, it's who, again, do I want to be and what kind of lifestyle do I want to live? And so, for me, I think about it like this. Most people equate success to a quantitative figure. I'm talking about quality of life, right?
Right,
Like really having a good time. Are you really living the American dream? It looks
right.
different for everyone. And you
Yeah,
got to stop fooling yourself thinking if I make a certain amount of money, it's not going to be funny anymore. It's never really funny when the rabbit has the gun. But
right.
when you take that from that rabbit,
Yeah, that's definitely a funny analogy and a pretty cool way to look at it. And that's great. And I noticed you didn't say anything about the fancy things and the things that people associate with success, and certainly talked about that before. As it's collecting things isn't is it's not doesn't lead to fulfillment. It's making sure that you're truly enjoying what you're doing, and I can tell you are absolutely enjoying what you're doing. Other than some of the obvious sacrifices you've already made that we've already talked about, what are some other sacrifices in life that you had to make in order to achieve success?
I think the biggest thing is identifying your timestamps, right? Like it takes 10,000 hours, according to Malcolm Gladwell, to be great at anything or to be great at something. And then, according to John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, it requires for you to remove the lid off of your thinking, the law of the lid. And so I think when you think about time and you think about it from a quantitative and a qualitative perspective, you have to really give yourself grace to live life throughout a part of your life, but not for too long, right? Enjoy it. You're going to go through the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, the twists and turns when you're rolling the dice, so to speak, in life, trying to figure it out, right? Trying to
Right.
grind through it day to day. But when you find that groove, right? Say we go bowling and you take the 1 and the 2 pin and you're trying to find the sweet spot. Once you find the sweet spot, keep attacking that. Don't
Yeah.
stop. That's where it gets good. And that's just how I think every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how I approach
Yeah. That's a really cool way of looking at it. When you find that groove, when you find something that's working, stick with it. Yeah, stick with it.
it.
Stay focused. Yeah, that's really nice. So you've been surrounded by some pretty amazing people throughout your career, Coach Dabo Swinney and the coaching staff at Clemson University, of course, the coaching staff at Boston College as well, the amazing speaker, such a powerful speaker, Eric Thomas. Who are some individuals that you consider mentors in your life?
You being one of them at my very lowest, and
Oh,
every
man.
time I make a big decision or a big purchase, I'm always calling Joey first. So that's you.
Yeah, I
Then there's
appreciate
Trey Mills. Yes, sir. Then there's Trey Mills. There's John Christensen. I'm calling these guys by their full name and their full government because that's how much y'all mean to me. Then you have individuals like Jeff Davis. You have individuals like Coach Woody McCorvey, who have been in my corner, as well as others as well throughout the Clemson network that I would consider to be close mentors that I work with every day, as well as my pastor Kelvin Steele of the King's Worship Center.
it.
And so I have some really solid men, and in addition to the men that you named and some other men that I did not name, which there's a ton of mentors and a ton of wisdom being poured into my life on a daily and weekly basis.
And I'll tell you what, I've been fortunate enough to meet several of the folks you consider mentors, and that's a pretty nice table to sit at. You know what I mean? That's a pretty nice table to sit at right there, and all good men, all great influences, and man, great table to surround herself with. And so you've got a book out, "The Man is Greater Than the Brand," which I've had the opportunity to read. Very powerful book. Tell the listeners a little bit about your book and how they can get their hands on a copy.
First and foremost, your character outweighs your reputation 10 times out of 10. And what that means is you could submit a resume, you could submit this, you could do that. But who are you as a man? Who are you at your core, right? Like from the boy to the man to a king. I break down my journey in 3 different parts, 9 chapters. And I give you a synopsis of what life can look like if you make a decision to live with a purpose and on fire, right? And not be lukewarm and not be someone who's only thinking about the superficial things on the outside. And so I take a deep dive into my life and give you the good, the bad, the ugly, the in betweens, and how to navigate it through a framework that's proven to work. And again, it looks different for everybody when you're obtaining success on that path. But I believe that the core principles that I share throughout the book will provide you with some form of a roadmap that will give you direction on where to go, how to get there. You've got to be strategic. And so I advise anyone that wants to take a look at it and give it a try to go on Amazon, or you can go directly through my website, richardyeargin.com, and purchase The Man is Greater Than the Brand. We have a ton of new stock and inventory coming in. So this will be a great time for folks to purchase.
Awesome. Yeah, I highly recommend that you grab the book. A very powerful read, very powerful story. And yeah, there's some of the mentors that he mentioned earlier are also in some of the chapters of the book too. And so just a very, very impactful book. Richard, tell the listeners how they can find you on social media. You already mentioned your website, but your Instagram, Facebook, all those places.
Man, my first and last name, Richard Yeargin. That's year and Jen, Yeargin. And third, Roman numeral 3, or at Professor Yearg, Professor Yearg. That's me.
All right. All right, Richard. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. I'm
Having me.
so sincerely appreciative of you coming on today, and you're making an impact on a lot of lives, and it's wonderful to watch. And I had someone tell me, they told me one time, Joey, your story's fun to watch. And Richard, your story is fun to watch. It's fun. It's been fun to watch you grow as an individual and into a leader of people. And I'm really proud to have you in my life as a friend. So really appreciate it. Thank everyone for tuning in to today's episode of Homebrew, where local entrepreneurs share their stories, challenges, and victories. Remember, every big business started with a bold idea and the courage to take the first step. So stay inspired, keep building, and join us next time as we continue to celebrate and support our local business community right here at home. Until then, keep hustling and making an impact. That's it for this episode of Homebrew. If it resonated with you or gave you a fresh perspective, share it with someone else who's working hard to make their mark. Subscribe, stay curious, and remember, no matter the challenge, keep pushing forward because success is brewed one step at a time. We'll see you next time. Same place, new story.